Imagine loving someone so much that you would risk your life and even your soul to prevent losing them. This age-old sentiment is a great way to live life regarding the ones you care about. The problem arises when the person you cannot fathom on losing is actually toxic for you and lowers your life force. In this situation, you will need to detach from them in order to elevate your life. For in today's video, we will discuss how to detach from certain people that it may seem impossible to do so. Thank you for watching, and if you want to be a part of our Stoic journey through life, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. Thank you for watching and welcome to our Stoic journey. Number 1. Recognize that you cannot control others. A vital key to finding inner peace when faced with difficult people or situations is fully recognizing the limits of personal control. As the Stoic philosophers emphasized, we have complete sovereignty only over our own thoughts, actions, and reactions, not external individuals or circumstances. Yet struggling against this reality by attempting to dictate, manage, or emotionally manipulate scenarios to our liking leads straight down the path of anguish. Like attempting to command the tide not to keep turning or demand the seasons cease their endless cycling, we waste precious energy raging when people fail to conform to our desired storylines for them. We become conflicted trying to write tidy endings for messy relationships or problems without solutions. The more we war against what is, the deeper frustration sinks us. As Marcus Aurelius wisely wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Releasing attachment to controlling uncontrollable forces grants us back power once painfully hemorrhaged, trying to sway the unswayable. Peace emerges through surrendering to the only authentic authority we each possess, dominion over our present moment responses, however challenging they may arise. When we stop blindly reacting from ego's agenda, space opens, receiving wisdom guiding the most skillful courses given current limiting parameters. Here, patience replaces fury, clear-sighted strategy supplanting wasted exertions trying to maneuver that which spurns compliance. By acknowledging the bounds of influence, we anchor inner freedom. Nothing external can unsettle or steal. The path of non-resistance leads inward home. Number 2, understand that nothing is permanent. A powerful mental model facilitating emotional detachment from difficult people and situations is deeply absorbing the truth that all conditions are impermanent. Whether we face foes betraying trust today or walk through valleys of adversity, nothing remains constant forever. Neither the star-crossed lovers nor arch-enemies of our intricate human storylines. Circumstances ever evolve, whether gradually over seasons or suddenly like lightning cracks splitting old worlds to reveal new landscapes. We dare not cling to fading vistas or stubbornly resist time's Herculean momentum. Fighting impermanence only delays flow states, harnessing life's fullness. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, all is ephemeral, both memory and the object of memory. The time is at hand when you will have forgotten everything, and the time is at hand when all will have forgotten you. Allow this universal law of eventual forgetting and transformation to temper reactivity over temporary nuisances or losses. Too soon both passions and pains fade into yesteryear's mist anyways. Exhale reactionary grip towards what has turned to proverbial dust already. No matter demands such rigidity now. Sweeping acceptance of life's radical impermanence untethers attachment towards anger, indignation, or unreasonable desires to control fluid constants beyond our jurisdiction anyways. Drink such ambrosia daily, reminding fragile mortality, and you strangely strengthen, made stoic regarding what cannot remain forever either way. Faced with detachment's grace, truly we need clutch few happenings under white knuckles. This too shall pass without such strain or sweat as we age gently above it all. Number 3. Let go of expectations. Like a child denied a promised trip to the amusement park, we waste precious life force brooding over what should have been rather than making the most of what current conditions allow. Tiny as those joys may look through the lens of indignation, yet as Epictetus taught, forcing rigid expectations onto a dynamic world designed not to conform to personal desire is pure folly. Inevitably, the world wins outright by imposing change against our protest. Rather than fixating on timelines for reconciliation unmet or career milestones not actualized quickly enough to suit impatient egos, we can relinquish vain clinging to imagined perfection. Make total peace with events transpiring at their own organic pace, indifferent to human records of achievement or concepts of fairness we project. Drop punishing demands, insisting people and fates align to priorities that aren't ours to dictate beyond recommending. What liberating power exists in full acceptance rather than toxically imposing assumed entitlements upon this wild world undomesticated by mortal willpower or wished ways. Release rigidity around demanded outcomes. Open space for life to flow unbound towards mysterious horizons revealing themselves only once we unclench fists, white-knuckled around expectations no longer serving highest good. The ground becomes fertile again for creating beauty, however limitations allow once we bow to what already is so. Number 4. Focus on yourself, not others. The only consciousness we can radically transform with guaranteed results with enough commitment is our own, and even that proves an ambitious enough mountain to scale without adding more mouths to feed uninvited. As we nourish the flowering of our unique potential from seed to fruiting, we organically attract others resonating at compatible levels of expansion, rather than exhausting over those content dragging their heels at lower altitudes of awakening. As Carl Jung wisely observed, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding about ourselves. The friction arising from somebody else's actions points inward to the aspects of self-seeking integration through practicing emotional mastery in their presence. After all, there is no inherent good or bad. Only our judgments make it so. Which means only through maturity cultivated do hot triggers cool into wisdom gained about our conditioned biases now conscious to heal. Once we claim authority fully for narrating our life's direction going forward irrespective of what came before, inner freedom no longer hinges on validating outcomes through outside applause. We grow devoted fully to the daily labor of patience, courage, and compassion, building vessels strong enough containing others' chaos without capsizing into it. And by mastering self-mastery through applied inner work, we organically inspire those once draining towards similar liberation enacted at their own pace. Number 5. Don't take things personally. As the Stoic philosophers emphasized, an essential component of emotional non-attachment lies in declining to internalize the unwarranted projections and assumptions of those whose distorted perspectives would condemn us falsely were we to absorb their critical knives piercing our psychic skin. Such narrow perceptions reveal significantly more about the lenses through which they view reality than facts about our souls or situational truths. Their acting out frequently roots in unhealed traumas or limiting beliefs poisoning how they interact with the world, long before we arrived on scene for them to unload upon like handy targets. Any victim stance or aggression may broadcast their implicit biases more than confirm our guilt. And even if we acted less than our highest selves, their harshness still exposes the smallness behind their punitive reactions, more than revealing some inherent unworthiness of basic compassion within all fallible human beings. So we can compassionately release taking the unkindness of others to heart as direct evidence of our essence or worth. Their wounds and words speak about their struggles coping. We need not carry contempt never rightfully ours to shoulder alone. In neutralizing poison through non-reaction, we transmute emotional venom into wisdom gained about avoiding future contact altogether for self-preservation's sake if patterns persist. Their own awakening unfolds on separate clocks. We tend gently to today's gardens simply by living nobly while planting seeds through our example. Number 6. Be grateful for the good times and lessons. When facing the dissolution of a once-cherished relationship or welcoming closure to a difficult chapter that dominated life for some seasons, we can soften the sorrow of transition by proactively counting even faint blessings memories equally contain. For instance, summers spent under the tutelage of stern mentors also built esteem skills now ensuring livelihoods. Though childhood friendships fizzled over time's distance once they anchored us when adrift, and lovers who departed forced reinvention ultimately aligning truer callings. Even seasons containing more overcast storms than sunny interludes still left wisdoms, revelations, and glowing embers in their wake once complete. If only we release stubborn fixations on canker and rot while ignoring the rose. The flowers yet took eventual root somehow as we stared transfixed at darker soils. There is no coming to consciousness without some pain. People will do anything to avoid facing their own souls. Yet in the painful facing awaits every opportunity for gaining wisdom and grace once the dust settles. We need not ignore the worthwhile to admit ways connection fell short. Holding paradox opens hands for gathering new jewelry. And when we lead with gratitude for all chapters gone by, suddenly through rearview mirrors, yesterday's troublemakers and farewells transform into guides escorting us into unknown but essential frontiers we never would have stumbled upon without first getting wonderfully lost on paths with them briefly. Their seasons remains in rich soils for us to replant intentions anew. Number 7. Forgive others for their shortcomings. As the Stoic philosophers emphasized, to forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. Because beneath anger and resentment towards those who morally failed us with lies, violations, or passive cruelty lurks the scared, hurting inner child still pining for the milk of human kindness. After callous injustice seemingly shattered such innocence forever. But by stepping forward as wise protector figures who understand and absorb undealt pain, we model self-compassion, untangling knots trapping us too. The act of exonerating others' sins reshapes entire landscapes of consciousness, as we stand guard no longer over pain but over protection, growth, and even prevention as guides now. We stop dwelling in their wrongness, now able to focus fully on preventing future trips into trauma's pitfalls ourselves, and for those depending on our strength nurtured through forgiveness. That imprisoned wrath now stands rerouted into fierce compassion, holding space for healing everywhere original wounds weep. And in time, old scars fade as we walk others gingerly to lifelines, manifesting what we once desperately needed too. Number 8. Accept what you cannot change. When faced with upsetting scenarios or crumbling connections beyond salvaging, one of the most constructive questions we can pose to avoid draining emotional turmoil is simply asking ourselves sincerely, at this stage, is there any constructive action within my control positively impacting things for the better? If we search honestly within and realize no tangible steps exist anymore for altering the trajectory at hand, radical acceptance of powerlessness grants us back power once painfully drained, trying to steer uncontrollable forces or bend unwilling people's choices we cannot dictate. As Reinhold Niebuhr wrote in his famed Serenity Prayer, "Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference." Peace emerges not through exerting useless resistance, but through surrendering to natural reality as it stands. There is deep relief in giving ourselves full permission to release, rather than drowning ourselves trying to salvage the salvageless, or convince those convinced against us. We tap into courage by acknowledging limitations pragmatically, then finding empowerment given actual options remaining however confined, imperfect, or requiring compromise they may be. As the Stoics advised, flow with rather than fight relentlessly against unrelenting tides. Conserve energy for what sprouts possibility, not lost hopes. In acceptance breathes opening chance for planting intentions anew rather than wasted land. Allow the dismantling, since we cannot remake against time and consent of others unavailable to our plans or influence anymore. Where we cannot construct again, we can lyrically release, slowly rebuilding elsewhere in time. It simply starts with bowed head, nodding to forces greater than personal will alone. And in the noble bowing flows surprising relief and reclaimed authority over destiny. Number 9. Let people have their own journeys. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "Don't demand or expect that events happen as you would wish them to. Accept events as they actually happen. That way, peace is possible." Putting this into practice can be tremendously freeing, albeit challenging at times. We all have a tendency to believe we know what is right for others, or how they should live their lives. But the truth is, each person must walk their own unique path. No one can determine the journey another should take, not even those closest to them. Attempting to direct or control the path someone else is on often leads to suffering on both sides. The other person feels constrained and resents the imposition on their agency and autonomy. And we suffer frustration and disappointment when others do not follow our vision for how they should live. This leads to damaged relationships and inner turmoil. Instead, the Stoics advise us to develop a stance of equanimity, non-judgment, and radical acceptance of others. Allow your friends, family members, partners, and colleagues the dignity and respect to make their own choices, even if you believe they are mistakes. Be open, compassionate, and offer guidance only when directly asked for it, but never demand or coerce. Realize also that the journey each person must take has highs and lows, twists and turns that are meant for their learning and growth. As frustrating as it may be at times, allow others to directly experience the consequences of their actions or inactions, for this is how wisdom develops. Your role is not to shelter them from life's lessons, but to offer non-judgmental support when needed. Number 10. Refrain from judgment about others and events. It is so easy in life to see a behavior or event and immediately judge it as good or bad, right or wrong. We tend to see the world through the binary lens of our personalized worldviews. But the Stoics caution us against this tendency to rush to judgment. They call for a more open, nuanced perspective. The human experience is incredibly complex. Two people can go through the exact same life circumstances and internalize them in radically different ways. Every person is dealing with inner struggles we can never fully comprehend. The same act that seems unforgivably thoughtless to me may have been a desperate attempt by someone else to assert a sliver of control in internal chaos. The universe is far too complex for one mind to judge definitively right from wrong. Stoicism asks us to acknowledge this vastness before making snap judgments about people and events. Can you know the whole truth of someone's existence well enough to say for certain they are worthy of blame rather than compassion? Does proclaiming something absolutely good or bad allow space for nuance in the gray areas where most truths dwell? Of course, certain acts cause harm and should be condemned on that basis. But the motivation behind all human behavior stems ultimately from core needs not being met or pain not acknowledged. The Stoics ask us to see beyond surface actions to these core psychological drivers. Even seemingly malicious deeds often arise from suffering or fear, rather than an inherent evil. This realization can soften judgment with understanding. Number 11. Do not cling to anger, resentment, or guilt. Stoicism teaches us that clinging to destructive emotions like anger, resentment, and guilt is ultimately an act of self-harm. When we steadfastly refuse to let go of these painful states, we voluntarily suffer, sometimes for years. We become attached to our indignation, using old wounds and grievances as reason to withhold forgiveness or compassion. But as the philosopher Marcus Aurelius advised, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Anger feels justified in the moment it arises. You've been wronged, someone must pay. But Stoicism helps us reflect on the fleeting nature of emotion. We experience a passing wave of anger, then wrongly conclude that wave defines us. But no emotion endures. The philosophy asks us to see beyond reaction to our wise, enduring self. Why poison days, weeks, or years by perpetually recalling old hurts? As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Resentment, too, feels temporarily gratifying. You cling to blame and frustration because someone failed to meet your expectations. But this rigid attachment to the past and its players freezes your attention in a tedious game of woulda, coulda, shoulda. You stay trapped in a mental replay of their faults, ignoring the only real power you have is over current choice. Guilt is similar. We stubbornly flog ourselves over some action instead of acknowledging the misstep and working to remedy future behavior. Self-flagellation quickly becomes a pointless, narcissistic wallow in shame feelings. It helps no one, while ensuring more balanced responses like accountability, restitution, and forgiveness have no chance to manifest. Number 12. Practice mindfulness to handle anxiety about loss. Loss is an inevitable part of life that often triggers profound anxiety. The mind ruminates endlessly about loved ones growing older, relationships changing or ending, health declining. Fear clouds our judgment and strains the present moment with dread-filled projections of hypothetical futures. Left unchecked, this anxiety fueled by attachment threatens to consume all capacity for stillness and joy. The Stoics advise meeting this proliferation of worrying thoughts with mindfulness. Purposefully ground yourself in the here and now through conscious, steady breathing. Slow exhales lengthen and deepen inhales. With each full breath, gently shift wandering attention back to the lungs' reliable rhythm. As anxious ideations arise, envision them as transient clouds passing in the sky of mind. Name them: worry, fear, grief. Then let them drift on. Return to the simplicity of breath. Inhale peace, exhale tension. Use the cycle's soothing reliability to anchor awareness in the only real place where life happens, this moment. Through mindful presence, anxiety loses its phantom power over attention. Worries about loss remain, but you cease to unconsciously feed their domination with reactive belief. Your center returns to balance. You gain choice around responding versus habitually following each worried thought down an imaginary rabbit hole of loss. Number 13. Seek closure if you need it. Unresolved issues from the past can haunt us, draining attention and energy from the present moment. Lingering feelings of confusion, hurt, or resentment from old situations and relationships prevent full engagement with current life. Stoicism teaches that seeking closure when possible is wise. Of course, closure depends greatly on others' willingness to participate meaningfully. Fortunately, Stoicism offers practices to find peace regardless of external factors. But when the option exists for open conversation and understanding, it can provide tangible emotional release. So if hanging questions linger about a broken relationship, unrealized business partnership, or missed opportunity, consider reaching out to those involved. Send a message taking ownership for your part. Ask if they're open to transparent dialogue. Suggest a video chat when you can talk and listen without judgment. Be specific in your ask while respecting any boundaries stated. Name the exact situation you need closure on, or questions you still have. Take care not to assign blame or try to relitigate the past. Instead, focus the conversation on hearing all perspectives, expressing your own experience authentically, then aligning on facts as best as possible. Number 14. Embrace change. Change is nature's eternal truth, but as creatures who cling to familiarity, endings of any kind can rack our minds with uncertainty's dread disease. Old identities, relationships, and routines that once brought comfort end abruptly, outgrowing usefulness within life's inexorable reshaping. In the loss we ache, yet avoidance only prolongs suffering. Like all opposing forces, change brings the end that seeds each new beginning. The caterpillar must dissolve completely to unfold wings from the waiting chrysalis. Only by boldly embracing transformation as inherently meaningful can we ourselves take flight. Stoicism's key insight here reflects nature's wisdom. Only by boldly embracing life's constant change can we flow harmoniously with reality's downstream currents. Where resistance persists, suffering inevitably follows. But aligned with truth through radical acceptance, grace emerges. Each closure becomes a vista, each ending a rebirth, any loss redeemed by growth's persistent shoot poking boldly from decay's fertile soil. In change, we plant intentions like seeds, nurturing their manifestation through patient trust in life's fundamental goodness. This transitionary space of endings allows us to shape new beginnings aligned with inner purpose. In windows between old and new, we glimpse freedom previously obscured by rigid constructs now past. Possibility dances in open vistas where once only walls stood sentry, guarding separation's painful illusion. Now eyes lift with hope and expanded vision toward the unity behind all change. We shed reactionary roles and identities forged in crucible of trials past. Our essence stands naked, vulnerable, and pristine as a lotus pool mirroring endless sky. If you are listening to this, thank you for staying till the end. If you feel any of these Stoic lessons resonated with you today, feel free to start a Stoic discussion in the comments. I welcome Stoic discussions as they are what the great Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca advised for. As we stated before, if you're interested in Stoicism and self-improvement through the great Stoics like Marcus Aurelius, then our Stoic newsletter, which you can join in the description, is perfect for you. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, and if you want more content like this, subscribe and hit the bell. Thank you for watching, and as always, I hope you find peace and serenity in the Stoic ways.